Now that Shinkalion has come out with its third anime series, I think it's a good time to cover the original. If you ever visited Japan, you'll note that it has great rail infrastructure. Like, really great rail infrastructure. Like even connecting Hokkaido with the rest of Japan great rail infrastructure. Shinkansen literally means new main line, but the rest of the world just calls them bullet trains. As the country that cooked up the mech anime, such as Gundam and Evangelion, I'm surprised it took them this long to get a really popular train mech anime. Trains into giant robots. The concept writes itself. It's also worth noting that the only languages this is in is Japanese, Mandarin, and Cantonese. I'm going to be using fan subs by Weeaboo Shogun because Mandarin and Cantonese aren't exactly my best languages, despite my last name. Plus, having a fan subber who knows the nuances of the Japanese language can help. Fan subs are not worth less than the official subs. Who knows? Maybe the actual terms will end up canon. I mean, Quarks in My Hero Academia was a fan term before it was adopted by official material. Enough with the introductions. Let's get started with Shinkansen Henkei Robo Shinkalion. We open at 3 a.m., the time where everyone wants a Krabby Patty. The crew is doing maintenance on the tracks, but something is off. There aren't supposed to be any trains on the tracks at this hour, especially if you're doing maintenance on said tracks. Enter this dark Shinkansen that is spreading these weird black particles everywhere. Black particles which turns objects and machinery into giant monstrous beings called, giant monstrous beings. This one in particular is called Railroader. Also, Google Earth's logo is in the corner. Was Google sponsoring this show? Though, I will say, the capture field laser having a Shinkansen head is honestly something adorable and I enjoy it. The capture field itself is not some kind of force field over the environment, rather it terraforms the environment, which I do like. It's an amazing way to save CG backgrounds, which are expensive, and focus solely on the fight scenes. However, this doesn't mean that the sense of stakes go out the window since the capture field only lasts less than an hour. Not to mention, civilians will also notice because civilian rails depart at 4:37, which is less than an hour away at this point. This is our first look at Hayato Hayasugi. More on him in a bit. And honestly, the models of the E6 and the E7 look way better than their real-life counterparts. Sadly, we do not see the actual fight scene with E6 and E7 going up against the Railroader. Instead, we cut to 3 days later and meet Hayato Hayasugi, the 11-year-old protagonist, and call this me being petty, but whenever he talks, I just hear Uraraka. No, seriously, same voice actress. Hayato is what we call a railfan. His sister Haruka sums it up quite well. I gotta say, I do enjoy her dry and utterly uninterested demeanor. Hokuto is basically passed out because, he was at work at 3 a.m., and you know that Hayato is part of Gen Z when you see Hokuto shove an iPad in front of him in order to get him distracted. Anyways, one of the new apps on the iPad is secretly a Shinkalion simulator. Hayato gets a high score by what appears to be a large margin. If the tilt of the iPad isn't lying, Hayato's score is way beyond what the second and third place are. Sakura invokes her mom/wife rage in order to get her husband up. Suddenly I want an alarm clock that says now departing in the shape of a train. Back with the Shinkansen Ultra Evolution Institute in East Japan, that's a mouthful, we meet Futaba. Futaba is going to be one of the new operators on the Shinkalion. She's also going to be a supporting character. I was watching this with Rowan and he said this is the most realistic thing he's ever seen. Someone would be playing games on the iPad, someone would be half asleep, and someone would be saying, hey, no sleeping at the table and stop playing games at the table. Hayato was promised by Hokuto to ride the Shinkansen. But before that, we end up having to cut away for a moment. It's revealed that they did capture the giant monstrous being from before, but the scientists are utterly baffled on what the hell it is. This is the only time they've been able to recover one, even though they did appear 10 years ago, but everything is a mystery. After all, first time to be able to recover one, they don't understand what on earth they're looking at. They just know it's some kind of super science beyond human control. Of course, it's science. If it was magic, well, it's magic. We don't have to explain it. So basically, the Ultra Evolution Institute found the best way to deal with giant monsters was to develop giant mechs that are probably really, really expensive and can transform from trains. Because anime. In the Tokyo station, we see Hayato be very excited. I do love Hayato being just an obsessed fanboy. Yeah, insert Deku joke here. Hayato's dream is to be a Shinkansen driver, saying that his dad was once a Shinkansen driver after all. though he's now an official at a railway museum. Anyways, we see Hayato's friend from school. Okay, I know I should be better than to be envious of a fictional collection of lines, but there's a tinge of envy in my heart over Azusa's view counts, and the fact that her thumbnails are better looking than mine. Though during the conversation, Hayato notices the mysterious Shinkansen. Naturally, being a rail fan, Hayato is just mostly confused on why it's even there. Back at the Institute, one of the issues is that they don't have a driver with a high enough compatibility rating for the E5. You can do all the training you want, but no compatibility, you're kinda useless. I wonder who could be. It's Hayato. Duh. The giant monstrous being reactivates somehow. Obviously, you might want to get the director involved. Anyways, Hokuto's off to work, but he leaves behind the keys in the iPad. Rookie mistake, Hokuto. Rookie mistake. Hayato chases after his dad and finds a bunch of stairs in a staff room. I mean, why would you do this? This is terrible for secrecy. Couldn't you have hid those things behind another door? Or use a secret elevator with a secret button? Yes, I know that's a lot of secrecy, but still, you kinda want that. Hayato basically speaks what the audience is thinking. Meanwhile, the Ultra Evolution Institute manages to seal off the giant monstrous being in the hangar. I know it's for drama, but I do appreciate this series acknowledges the maintenance engineering that goes into these giant robots because they are often unsung heroes. Hayato is spying on them, being very, very confused at how his dad is just an official at a railway museum, and then he gets spotted by Shashot, who is a conductor robot played by Brock from Pokemon. No, seriously, same guy. Hayato apparently has a very high compatibility rate with the Shinkalion. His compatibility rate is ridiculously high by Shinkalion standards. Futaba is hesitant to throw an 11-year-old into a giant robot. Most people would say this is from an ethical or moral standpoint. I have an alternate explanation. Given that Evangelion exists in this universe, and given Futaba's age, I think it's safe to say that she fears that she ends up creating Shinji Ikari if she suggests throwing Hayato into a giant mech. As Commander Izumi says, they can sit around arguing and get killed, or they can tell Hayato to get in the robot. Geez, I wonder what the guy on the poster will do. He clearly gets into the robot and rides the E5 after all. Upon entering the cabin, he gets this suit. I have mixed feelings about it. Initially, I disliked the color scheme, but it has grown on me. What hasn't are the boots, and whatever this neck piece is, it looks like a neck pillow, which makes him look like he's about to go to sleep. Now we're ready for a fight scene. Hayato is ready to fight. You'll notice the background isn't the capture field, mainly because this battle is plot relevant, so the capture field backgrounds probably won't be needed. Why spend that much money? Although he's probably not going to be using that background that much. Who am I kidding? I've seen this episode. I know he doesn't. Basically, this is how this works. The Shinkalion syncs with Hayato's movements, and the battle is over in 10 seconds flat, Hayato one-shotting the monster. It took 10 seconds for Hayato to one-shot this monster specifically. Hayato is met with thunderous applause from everyone, and a health checkup. Now, this makes sense. You want your movements to sync with the robot, you also want to be sure that your pilot, or rather driver, since that's what they're called in Shinkalion, can handle the strain of it all, and handle the physical activity, and what the actual hell? Why is a tickle machine part of this? Okay, the comically large needle I can understand, but again, why the tickle machine with a face that is clearly enjoying the torture it's putting Hayato through? Do all Shinkalion drivers have to deal with this? Hayato clearly didn't like it. Shasha tries to live with Hayato, who makes a Shinkansen comparison. I don't get this, but I think Futaba is currently the most relatable character for me. While the Institute is happy to find a driver compatible with the E5, Commander Izumi rightfully points out some issues. Like, maybe throwing your director's son into a robot might not be good for either the director or Hayato. Izumi is against the idea of forcing children to drive the Shinkalion for obvious reasons. Yeah, let's not give the director a heart attack over throwing his son into actual danger. Hayato overhears this. Commander, might I suggest investing in thicker walls? All joking aside, I do like Commander Izumi for being the only sane man, but given that I watched plenty of other henshin shows before, mostly Super Sentai, I know that the battle will escalate whether or not the children become heroes. Futaba and Hokuto talk, Futaba pointing out how crazy it is. I will not give up this headcanon that she's an Evangelion fan. Futaba assures Hokuto that his son will not feel forced into this, however, they need to be supportive of him. Meanwhile, Hayato is thinking about the Shinkalion and how it feels so unreal. Then he sees Shashot. When your best friend is a YouTuber, you can see his concern about her finding out. Though she is clearly suspicious of Hayato because of his attempts at covering up Shashot and acting unusually, fate is always met on the road taken to avoid it. Hayato doubts that he'll ever ride the Shinkalion ever again, mainly because of his special circumstances. But what do you know, the black particles show up and the Ferris wheel turns into Mad Ferris. Hayato must move. E6 and E7 units get floored by the giant monstrous being, and Hayato is more than happy to leap into battle. Obviously, hitting with a sword proves difficult, and the capture field is also at risk of breaking. The Ferris wheel is also a ranged fighter, not one that can be cut down with a sword so easily. So the solution is to have Hayato shoot it with a laser called Grand Cross. That works. We see the villains, one of whom takes interest after this, ominously saying his evolution speed is increasing. If Shinkalion is anything, it's fun. As an opener, it does what it needs to do. The cause of the conflict is established, the mechanics of the world are established and can be expanded upon later, personalities of the main characters, the Ultra Evolution Institute, and when there's clearly some budgetary limit, I don't think it actually detracts from the show. Though you're not able to hear it, I'm not a fan of this music. Don't get me wrong, I like the opening. It's just that the rest of the music feels pretty basic compared to the shows in the same demographic, like Pokemon, whom Shinkalion's sequel series aired right next to. Maybe the music will grow on me. Overall, this has been an enjoyable experience, and next time we'll be visiting the other main characters. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.